Your source for all things Texas Tech. This is the Ask Level podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of the Ask Level podcast, brought to you by our friends at Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
Alongside Chris Level, I'm Chois Woodman. Christopher, summer has almost arrived. I see you've got like a summery shirt going on there. I like it. It's starting to get a little warmer.
It's
the LBK.
I think the name of the shirt is like dogwood.
Oh, I like it.
So it's like the little tiny flower there, but yeah, it is kind of, I guess, summery or golfy or something like that. I'm not sure if that's even a word, but yeah, man.
Both
I'm not typically
words.
like a floral print guy. It's just
it's a good looking shirt.
Yeah, I mean, it's just subtle or loud. I don't know, but either way, but yeah, I definitely didn't want my shirt to be a topic. You're just wearing the stripes.
I'm just going stripes. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, summer does mean sports news, at least for Lubbock, Texas, slows down a little bit, but we've still got a few things to get into today.
Yeah. I mean, baseball theoretically could just have a couple of games left for Tim Tadlock's guys. That is
it's not what most expected this time a month ago. I mean, it just,
it is don't take what I say the wrong way, but sometimes these kinds of things are good for you in a way to hit the reset button and go, okay, whether this probably isn't true, but whether let's change our philosophy here. Have we gotten complacent? Do we need to adapt to the new to the 2024 way of doing things? I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's sometimes there are positives from getting your head kicked around a little bit in a season that you thought you were gonna do well in, and I think probably for Joey and those guys last year, in many ways they probably would have come away going saying the same thing, like, hey, we'll be better because of this. We didn't meet expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. But for the Metroplex sports fan, we talk some Cowboys and Rangers here and occasionally, but for the Metroplex sports fan, I think I saw starting, depending on when you're listening to this, Wednesday night of this week.
Yeah, I think I saw the same thing.
You could watch one of your Metroplex teams, either the Mavericks or the Stars, in the Western Conference Finals every night for like basically, what is it, like 2 weeks, assuming those series go a ways. But yeah, it's
pretty well
crazy.
2 weeks straight. It's unbelievable to see that.
I mean, the folks at the American Airlines Center in Dallas going to be busy. the folks,
and forth.
The folks switching it from ice rink to basketball court and all that. But if you're like a ticket taker or working concessions and that thing, you want more games, not less, because you get more opportunities to work. Yeah. So you're thinking like, man, I'm going to get a little extra this year. 2024 was good to us, and who knows, maybe it'll be it'll really be extra if either team can get out of that next round. But there's some of that going on too, I guess. But
it's cool for the city of Dallas, for the Metroplex, for sure, to see both teams doing so well and in the Western Conference Finals, and then you're fresh off of obviously a World Series championship. So, I mean, it's good times in the Metroplex.
What are you doing, Jerry? What are you doing?
He's all in, Level. He told you so.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, what is going on? And the crazy thing is, probably not exactly true, but like the Cowboys are worth so much, they could probably, in so many ways, they're probably worth more than the Rangers, Mavericks, Stars combined.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, which is just,
it's nuts.
That it makes me furious. So it's like, yeah. Anyways,
you know that little meme with the stick figure that like pokes and says "Do something." That's what I'm like to the Cowboys every year. Do something. Yeah. So, I mean, we're off, non-tech stuff for a little bit. We had one of the weirdest stories we've ever seen in sports this week too, where Mr. Nice Guy of the PGA got arrested on the way to the golf tournament in the PGA Championship this week. That was quite an interesting story with Scottie Scheffler.
This is one of the things I don't miss about doing daily radio, Woodman.
Yeah.
And here's what I mean by that. I do miss some aspects of it, but when you get a story like this and you're on the air or close to being on the air and you don't have the full scope of everything,
Right.
and you're trying to process and understand and really get to the bottom of what in the heck is going on, whether it's something tech related or metroplex sports related or league related with some of these professional leagues we follow, or in this case, the number one golfer in the world. I was glad I was able to kind of sit back and kind of watch it play out before I had to form an opinion on it, because I didn't even know you were going to ask me about all this. I had followed that extremely closely.
Yeah.
Watched the PGA Championship over the weekend, and yeah, I think by all accounts, he is a nice guy. There's zero drama there, and whether he went to UT or not, I think some kind of but he's the best golfer in the world. He's been extremely consistent, and there's just not a lot of drama or a lot not to like there, other than maybe for those of us in Lubbock where, hey, man, I wish you'd have picked a different college to go to.
Right.
But I think he handled himself in the post-round press conference about as well as anybody. He was human. He was, I think he, because that was the main thing, man. Somebody lost their life here.
Yep.
And he wasn't allowed to really get into some of the details, but I think he kind of, hey man, I was doing stretches in a jail cell. Never thought I was going to wake up and get arrested. And I thank you to all the first responders and police officers and all that stuff.
Right.
But then you see it reported on Sunday that a lot of the Louisville Police Department, or it's Louisville, so sorry, Louisville. And you were just there. The police department there, basically out there to shake his hand and interact and almost kind of try to put the thing back together again after what appeared to be just a huge misunderstanding. But that mugshot, that the damage done to, I guess, reputation or whatever you want to see, that's because it's a guy that just had his first kid, like what, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago?
No, Monday of this week.
Yeah. So there's just no telling what his mind frame has been. And I thought fascinating that Friday, when this happens, he goes out there and is able to compartmentalize like a world-class athlete. Insanity to me. But as people often say, things like that, as you process and you deal with and you whatever, that's when it becomes harder. And his Saturday round wasn't anywhere near as good.
Much worse.
So I just but that's my opinion. I bet this goes away. By what I've seen and read, it should. I don't know the minutia there to a T, but by the firsthand accounts, I don't think this was somebody trying to, skirt the system or thought they were above this or that. People may disagree. That's fine. That's my read of it. And I just take the Louisville Police Department trying to put the pieces back together again as a pretty good faith gesture that, hey, maybe somebody was a bit overzealous. It was a bit chaotic with the rain, a fatality. It's dark. And somebody missed a signal and missed an interpretation, and it equaled one of the biggest news stories really in golf and since the Live Tour. And really, I mean, this was wild.
It's crazy.
To the point where I saw this first thing Friday morning. I had to check the Jeff Darlington Twitter account to make sure this wasn't a parody or this was the real person.
I mean, it was wild, crazy sports story, but just I just want to get your quick take on it. There's a decent amount of other stuff we'll get into, a few questions from our audience, but one familiar face returning to the LBK. Some news this week. Darcel McBath coming back to the Red Raider football team as an analyst. I know you've spent time around him from his playing days at Texas Tech. He's been on Leach's staffs and in recent history. But someone did ask me this week, and I wanted to get your take on this, but I'll let you talk about McBath first, and then you can get into the question. But someone asked me, how exactly does the pay work for analysts versus assistant coaches that count towards the assistant coaches? How's that whole system work? How many can you have, analysts, that sort of thing? But
Well, and this is the gray area that I guess it was Nick Saban kind of started creating some of these positions, these extra positions. If he, I don't believe he was. I think this is a voluntary move on his part, kind of betting on himself. I don't want to be where I'm at anymore. I'd rather be elsewhere. Hey, we don't have anything for you. Well, can we still make something work? Yes, we can. Here we go. That's my read on the situation.
Okay.
So I don't know how much he needed to be paid versus it's like there's no offset language because he wasn't like fired that his previous employer would have owed him money and then it counter. In other words, like I'll just flip the example here, like Stephen Hamby, who was not retained, with the situation at Texas Tech and all that, which I still think a lot of Stephen and his wife Devin and all that, but he's working at North Texas now for Eric Morris.
Right.
And I think that he has to like declare what he's making and it's like an offset. So like Tech owes him money, but doesn't owe him whatever money they owe him minus what he's making in North Texas. You follow me? And what typically happens is that North Texas or whatever institution will just turn in a really, really low number.
Yeah.
Like, because it doesn't really matter.
Sure.
The individual is going to get their money regardless. But as far as analysts go, Woodman, I don't really think there's a limit. I think it can be cumbersome if you have too many, though, just on what are these people actually doing? How many leaders do we really need? Or do we have too much analysis? Do we have too much this or that? And I think at some point it becomes very difficult for somebody like Joey McGuire to manage the whole thing. So that's why it takes a very strong leader and then coordinators like Zach and Tim are to, is there something that and Darcel's a bit different than your typical analyst. I say he's different. A lot of times you have the previous head coaches like Matt Wells was an analyst at Oklahoma. Darcel's a previous assistant coach for several years in the Pac-12 and in the SEC.
Right.
And if I'm Joey, one, I get a guy that comes home. Okay, this is where he played. He's a known quantity here, wants to be here. And now if like say Coach Yates, somebody on that defensive side of the ball were to be plucked away from you or whatever, or what may be about to happen is there's some chatter that they're going to come in and do some different things with roster limits and scholarship limits or unlimited and all that. And the same thing can be said about coaches. Like, hey, we're tired of monitoring how many coaches you can have. Just go for it. If you feel like you can pay whatever and you have a use for them, hire away. And that may be I don't know, planning for that or just in preparation of that or not real sure, but I'm glad that it did. I'm glad that it did happen because he's a good one, man. He played in that sweet spot, 05, 06, 07, and 08. His last year here, I think he had 7 or 8 picks.
Yeah.
That 08 team took a couple of those to the house.
I believe first team All Big 12 that year, second round
pick. Yeah. I mean, this was a dude now.
Absolutely.
Spent 5 years in the NFL. So there you go.
Yep. Good to have McBath back. He was definitely a fan favorite around
And
here.
every coach or coordinator, as it would be, like I used to talk to Matt Wells all the time about what Brent Venables was having him do. And it was everything from daily stuff to, looking way ahead on
Mhm.
something, or a study on, let's do a self scout. Let's take the last 5 years and let's study play calls on this down and distance. I don't know. You come up with whatever
Yeah,
parameters you want to come up with, but every head coach or coordinator has a different view of what that analyst they want from that.
sure.
And I can't specifically tell you what Darcel would be doing on a day-to-day basis, but he will be helping with the defense. He will be looking at opponents and past and future and all those things. He's got an eye for it. He played it. He played it really well.
Mhm.
He played it really well here. I mean, and so yeah, but those are fun hires, man, because this is kind of what makes this is kind of that secret sauce a little bit that really can kind of improve a program that
Sure.
a lot of people, it'll be not necessarily top of mind awareness.
Right. So sticking with football, we had a post spring depth chart. I believe you got with Coach McGuire. There's post spring. We've kind of put a bow on the spring. I guess just take us through your thoughts on that and some highlights there.
Okay, well, like be more specific. I'm
Well,
not, like you need more.
was there anything that stood out to
Well,
you as far as
okay.
the too deep or the or whatever on the other side of the spring from, I guess, entering the spring? Anything different from what you anticipated? Um, Anybody that's really elevated themselves in the spring, that sort of thing.
I mean, one, I think you have to add the caveat in any conversation like this that it is a post spring depth
Correct.
chart.
Sure.
This isn't what you're going into game one with.
Hmm.
I think that it can change. It probably will change, but it does give you a good read over the summer months of kind of where things are at and how you get into August and all those things. Sheridan Wilson at center, maybe, although I was expecting it because of how
Hmm.
much chatter there was in the spring. I think I look at the offensive depth chart a bit more at times just because defensively, you know this, everybody plays like a depth chart in some ways. It's like a preseason ranking or a power ranking or a
Hmm.
trying to think of what other equivalents are. We all love lists, right? We point to them, we reference them, we look at it, it's fun, it's tangible, I can touch it, I can see it.
Yeah.
But like defensively, a depth chart, even going into a game,
Sure.
there's 20 something guys that play. So, and people get it caught up into a lot of scribes will get caught up into so and so started that game. Okay, well, I think it was middle last season. Like Taj Brooks didn't he wasn't on the field for the first offensive play because of the set they were running or
Yeah.
the personnel group they were running. So it's like he doesn't start a game. I think that was right. I may not be, but I'm going to use that example anyways.
Okay.
And then you get into, well, yeah, starting streak over with, for Taj Brooks. It's just, I don't know, it's semantics to me. However, having said that, the offensive line and the quarterback are the positions that I think people focus on the most here because typically that stays pretty tight.
Yeah.
You want one quarterback ish to play. You typically have your five on the offensive line. You identify a swing tackle, a swing interior guy, and maybe that guy is both guards and a center, or maybe you also have a backup center. So you get 7 or 8 deep.
Yeah.
I just thought Sheridan Wilson was an interesting story because this isn't anything anybody expected at the start of spring. And now he's listed as your first team center. Because at the bowl game last year, it was Caleb Rogers' spot, and this is what
Hmm.
we're going to do, and things have changed.
Yeah.
Davion Carter, not in that first five, and I'll be I don't know what this looks like, but I'm going to be really surprised if he's just not in there. And if he's not in there, I guess, boy, that's a hell of a backup to have. Because he I think is a student of the game. He's a bit undersized, but he is somebody that he takes this very, very seriously. So that was one of the big reads I guess I had. There's not too
Okay.
many surprises otherwise, just because you know, you can get into first team. We know the linebackers. You kind of know the defensive line for the
Sure.
most part, although that's a rotational piece. You
Mm-hmm.
know, Horn and Lux are your corners. AJ McCarty maybe being a first team star over Brendan
Yeah.
Jordan, and you know maybe that's you know, and we'll see
Right.
in what that really looks like. But those are a few thoughts. But so many of these positions, it's like you're running with a rotation. There's you know there's multiple people playing at these spots, which is why it takes so many people to play on a football team.
So with that, then let's talk depth real quick. What position group do you feel like you've got the most depth at this year, either side of the ball, and which one are you the thinnest?
Tight end,
There's a lot of talk about tight end right now.
and rightfully so.
Yeah, good.
I
Yeah.
saw a list the other day that said you had like I don't know, was it sixth, seventh, or eighth best tight end room
I
in
think
the
it
country?
was 7th by maybe
And
Pro Football Focus. I can't remember who.
that's 100%. I
Yep.
absolutely would buy into that. I think
Yeah.
you have multiple guys that could play at the next level. I think you have an up and coming star in John Carlos Miller.
Mhm.
I think you've got depth with like a Jason Llewellyn that hasn't really scratched the surface and needed a change of scenery. I mean, you're not going to get caught with you know Jaden York, you know, being your starter anymore. Somebody
Yeah.
like that. No offense, but that those days are over. And
Sure.
that's really I think one of the main points that should be made about the depth chart conversation.
Yeah.
There's a lot of no-name defense talk that stems from Joey. The head coach has kind of really kind of done that. And you're going to be picked. I mean, I'm looking at the power rankings. I'm looking at all these different things. I don't know, you're 9th or 10th on a lot of lists, or 8th or whatever in that
About a lot.
middle
Yep.
sweet spot in a 16 team league. And that's fair because you don't have a lot of quote unquote name recognition. There's not a lot of draft picks running around, and you didn't meet expectations last year. However, and would I rather have bona fide stars at different places on my team? Sure.
Of course.
But I think Joey would tell you one of the big takeaways about being able to put this depth chart together is that we are really, really deep. And this is something that they just I think they've learned a lot from the last couple of years with some of the injuries and you getting dinged up, and it just alters your season. And so much of this is on the quarterback position, but that's not the only one. And I think they really wanted to, at all costs, avoid a lot of being caught like, uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really, as far as thinnest, I mean, I could get, you know, body-wise, you're really not thin anywhere. I still have the biggest question marks about offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And you're thinnest on experience here. Not necessarily experience, because Vinny Scurry, Davion Carter, Sterling Porcher, they are wildly experienced.
Right.
It's just here and together. Because, example, we talked about him last week on last week's show. Jackson Hughes, South Carolina, previously played at Charlotte. The fact that you can get him in here, and you kind of hear some chatter like he could help us, and he could help us like right now. That tells me a lot. That's good that you may have found somebody out there that could do that. However, the fact that you still may need help ought to tell you something too.
Yeah. No,
So
I agree.
So,
I mean, in a utopian society, you walk out of spring with your set 5 guys, and it's like, all right.
and you're not set.
Oh, I know.
mean,
I'm saying if you have what you want, that's obviously where you'd be, but you're nowhere close to that at the moment. And
but you do have experience. It's just not together. I do think you have some options, and you do have a next wave of you're not thin there at all. You've got a wave of young, very talented players. I mean, there's some people over there that will tell you, like, and we've talked about this on this show too, that
Yeah.
Jacob Ponton could be one of the highest drafted guys currently on this team. He's nowhere near being ready and draft eligible and all those things. He's got to realize that potential. However, that's the kind of freshman
Yes.
that you now have. Your Caden Carrs, your Nick Fatigs, your Seth Martins, your Daniel Sills, they are just ready to pounce very soon, but you're just not quite there yet. It's like you put the cake in the oven and you put the toothpick out, and it's like, oh, it's
Still
a
got some.
little dough or a little batter still kind of creeping on that toothpick. That's kind of where you're at.
Well,
I'm
that's
not saying
typical
that
for offensive line, right? I mean,
it wouldn't be wise to go put a toothpick in Caden Carr. He might he
Ooh.
might do a number on you. However, you get my point, because you're not thin there
yeah.
at all. I still, the other one, like 1 and 1A, I'm still a little curious about corner, like pure corner,
Okay.
straight up corner, not the DB. I'm talking about line up on the outside, mano a mano. That's where you're at. Mohorn, Braylon Lux,
Yeah.
Devin Cromwell. You've got some folks there, but there's not a ton of experience there that we have seen.
Okay.
So
Makes sense. Let's get to some questions before we run out of time. Mark from Twitter Level says, it is year 3 of the Joey McGuire tenure. Predict a final record as of what you know about the team today, and will they finish in the top 5 in the new Big 12? Love the podcast. Great job.
oh, thank you, Mark. That's all Woodman, man.
No.
I hate doing like season records
You know,
because if knowing what I know right now, because last year you have all these projections, do you think what's going to happen? And then Tyler Shuck breaks his ankle, Baron Morton hurts his shoulder.
Yeah.
And then it's just kind of all, so with what we know right now, I think you have a chance at the 8 or 9 win, because you have 7 home games. There's not really a game on the road that is, just scares you to death. You're not going to Norman or Austin anymore.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't great for you the last time you were in Tucson. Okay. But if that's like one of your tougher tests, I think you're built for it. I think you are. But again, is your quarterback going to be healthy? Is his shoulder okay?
Big question.
Or is Cam Brown or Will Hammond or Jake Strong playing? Because if that's the case, I would alter my prediction a lot.
Yeah.
So as long as we understand that part, Mark, but I mean, there's just, you can go win at Iowa State. You did the last time you were there. You've won in Fort Worth multiple times, over the last, 6 to 8 times you've been there. Stillwater will be a bit tricky. You won there recently as well. In fact, Oklahoma State's starting quarterback won for Texas Tech in Stillwater.
True. Is that the last time you won there?
Full circle. But yeah. I think you can get into that, because let's just say this, man, it's going to be a pretty big disappointment. And Joey would tell you the same thing if you don't win at least 6 of these 7 home games. So at that point, you're at 6 wins. If you found a couple of road wins, you're at 8 wins right there. So that's what I'm choosing to look at it this way.
Yeah. And 8 or 9 wins gets you right in that top 5 of the Big 12 territory. Yeah. It may not be right
now,
there. But...
And he's going to be hoping for much more than that. He's going to say, kind of like we talked about last year. I'm not prepared to talk about it like we did last year, but a successful season. I don't know if I judge this team based on like I did last year with so much experience back and being as old as you were and all the production back and all those things. But last year it was, I expect you to be relevant in the conference race into November. And you weren't.
Yep.
You weren't. And that's why I say you fell short of expectations. I'm not going to make that same statement. I think Kansas State could make that statement. I think Arizona maybe could make that statement. I think Utah could make that statement. I don't think Kansas can. Some are trying to make that for them. I'm not one of those. I'm not there yet. I think Oklahoma State probably can make that statement, but it's a bit of a handful. And then you've got the your West Virginias and your Texas Techs and your TCUs and your Iowa States that are, right there in that next wave that I just don't know if that's a fair, like a huge disappointment if you're not in the conference race in mid to early November.
I think because of your schedule, I mean, it should give more optimism to be in that top tier.
No.
As much as we talked about the cupcake schedule Oklahoma State had, no, you had last year, Big 12, it did Texas Tech a favor this year. You don't play those top
Utah,
2 teams you mentioned.
No teams from Kansas.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have some favorable games. All right, let's sneak one more in from Ed before we close it down. It says, should the NIL collective be required to reveal what they are paying each college athlete level?
Not right now. I don't think anybody necessarily wants that, but things are about to change. And if there's employment status attached to these young men, these athletes, these professional athletes, I mean, let's just
young professionals,
younger professional athletes.
Yeah,
I think that you'll probably get into some of that. Yeah, I think that may be required or regular business procedure, kind of like working for, because at this point they work for a state institution at Texas Tech, right?
Yeah.
And everybody else's salary is, you can, just start filing Freedom of Information Acts toward anybody's salary.
Yeah.
So
sure.
Yeah, I think that if there's some changes there, then I think that that's exactly the way this will go. But right now, and I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth because I think this is close to changing very, very soon. But under the current structure, I don't think there's a need for it. And I think that great Osabor's $2 million price tag that was reported nationally by an agent or a national NBA guy, I was kind of stunned to see that. That was really one of the first that I'd seen reported nationally.
Yeah.
About that. Now his mom is his dad's a taxi driver and his mom is like a caretaker for another family. And so this is actually a really good story. Yeah. But if I was this player or his coach, I wouldn't have wanted this out there. It just creates a bunch of unrealistic expectations and a bullseye on you that you just don't need. You don't want to sign up for. But
no question.
Plenty of reasons why you would want it to be out there too, so you're not bidding against yourself. But with it being public, like an NBA or NFL or Major League Baseball locker room, there could be some professional jealousy involved.
Yeah, no doubt.
He's getting how much, and he screwed that up, and I'm getting here and I saved the team. You got all kinds of dynamics at play.
Yeah. Well, there was another question from Trevor. We'll get to that one next time about coaches and how long they'll be on campus, that sort of thing. But we're out of time this time. Level, appreciate the time as usual. Enjoyed it, and we'll do it again.
Sounds good. Thank you to Cantex Roofing. Obviously, Memorial Day weekend next weekend, so may hit the pause on this a bit. But anyway, appreciate everybody paying attention to this one, and thank you to Choice and the folks at Cantex Roofing and the folks at Raymar, and enjoyed it. Maybe we'll do a special edition or something before we're asked to do one, like before the weekend or something, if news dictates. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. TBD. But either way, enjoy the long weekend. School's out. Enjoy the time with your family. Be safe out there, people. Keep hope alive. We'll talk to you next time.
That's Chris Level. I'm Choice Woodman. You've been tuned into the Ask Level podcast, brought to you by Double T 97.3.
You've been listening to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3.